Okay, I'm reading this book. This one. So read with me. Advertising. I identified the advertising that was generating 80% or more of revenue, identified the commonalities among them, and multiplied them, eliminating all the rest at the same time. My advertising cost dropped over 70%, and my direct sales income nearly doubled from monthly $15K to $25K in 8 weeks. It would have doubled immediately had I been using radio, newspaper, or television instead of magazines with long lead times. Number two, online affiliates and partners. I fired more than 250 low yield online affiliates or put them in holding patterns to focus instead on the two affiliates who were generating 90% of the income. My management time decreased from 5 to 10 hours per week to 1 hour per month. Online partner income increased more than 50% in that same month. Slow down and remember this. Most things that most things makes no difference. Being busy is a form of laziness, lazy thinking, and indiscriminate action. Being overwhelmed is often as unproductive as doing nothing and is far more unpleasant. Being selective, doing less, is the path of the productive. Focus on the important few and ignore the rest. Of course, before you can separate from the chaff and eliminate activities in a new environment, whether a new job or an entrepreneurial venture, you will need to try a lot to identify what pulls the most weight. Throw it all up on the wall and see what sticks. That's part of the process, but it should not make more than a month or two. It's easy to get caught in a flood of minutiae, and the key to not feeling rushed is remembering the lack of times is actually lack of priorities. Take time to stop and smell the roses, or in this case, to count the pea pods. The 9 to 5 illusion and Parkinson's law. I saw a bank that said 24-hour banking, but I don't have that much time. If you are an employee, spending time on nonsense is to some extent not your fault. There is often no incentive to use time well unless you are paid on commission. The world has agreed to shuffle papers between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. And since you are trapped in the office for that period of servitude, you are compelled to create activities to fill that time. Time is wasted because there is so much time available. It's understandable now that you have the new goal of negotiating a remote work arrangement instead of just collecting a paycheck. It's time to revisit the status quo and become effective. The best employees have the most leverage. For the entrepreneur, the wasteful use of time is a matter of bad habit and imitations. I am no exceptions. Most entrepreneurs were once employees and come from the 9 to 5 culture. Thus, they adopt the same schedule whether or not they function at 9 a.m. or need 8 hours to generate the target income. This schedule is a collective social agreement and a dinosaur legacy of the results by volume approach. How is it possible that all the people in the world need exactly 8 hours to accomplish their work? It isn't 9 to 5 is arbitrary. You don't need 8 hours per day to become a legitimate millionaire, let alone have the means to live like one. 8 hours per week is often excessive, but I don't expect all of you to believe me just yet. I know you probably feel as I did for a long time. There just aren't enough hours in the day. But let's consider a few things we can probably agree on. Since we have 8 hours to fill, we fill 8 hours. If we had 15, we would fill 15. If we had if we have an emergency and need to suddenly leave work in 2 hours but have pending deadlines, we miraculously complete those assignments in 2 hours. It is all related to law that was introduced to me by Ed Jishaw in the spring of 2000. I had arrived to class nervous and unable to concentrate. The final paper, worth a full 25% of semester's grade, was due in 24 hours. One of the options, and that which I had chosen, was to interview the top executives of a startup and provide an in depth analysis of their business model. The corporate power that we had decided last minute that I couldn't interview two key figures or use their information due to confidentiality issues and pre-IPO precautions. Game over. I approached ED after class to deliver the bad news. ED, I think I'm going to need an extension on the paper. I explained the situation and Edie smiled before he replied without so much of a hint of concern. I think you will be okay. Entrepreneurs are those who make things happen right. 24 hours later and 1 minute before the deadline, as his assistant was locking the office, I had in 30-page final paper. It was based on different company I had found, interviewed, and dissected with an intense all-nighter and enough caffeine to get an entire Olympic track team disqualified. It ended up being one of the best papers I would written in 4 years, and I received an A. Before I left the classroom the previous day, ED had given me some parting advice. Parkinson's law dictates that a task will swell in perceived importance and complexity in relation to the time allotted for its completion. It is the magic of the imminent deadline. If I give you 24 hours to complete a project, the time pressure forces you to focus on execution, and you have no choice but to do only the bare essentials. If I give you a week to complete the same task, it is a 6 days of making a mountain out of a molehill. If I give you 2 months, God forbid, it becomes a mental monster. The end product of the shorter deadline is almost inevitably of equal or higher quality due to greater focus. This present this presents a very curious phenomenon. These are two synergistic approach for increasing productivity that are inversions of each other. Limit task to the important to shorten work time, 80 out of 20. Shorten work time to limit tasks to important, Parkinson's law. The best solution is to use both together. Identify a few critical tasks that contribute most to income and schedule them with every short and clear deadlines. If you haven't identified the mission critical task and set aggressive start and end time for their completion, the unimportant becomes the important. Even if you know what's critical, without deadline that create focus. The minor task forced upon you or invented in the case of the entrepreneur will swell to consume time until another bit of minutiae jumps in to replace it, leaving you at the end of the day with nothing accomplished. How else could you could dropping off the package at UPS, setting a few appointments, and checking email consumes an entire 9 to 5 day? Don't feel bad. I spent months jumping from one interruption to the next, feeling run by my business instead of the other way around. The 80-20 principle and Parkinson's law are two cornerstone concepts that will be revisited in different forms throughout the entire sections. Most inputs are useless, and time is wasted in proportions to the amount that is available. Fat free performance and time freedom begins with in limiting intake work overload. In the next chapter, we'll put you on the real breakfast of champions, the low information diet. A dozen cupcakes and one question. Love of bustle is no industry. Okay, that's it for today.